This is the soundtrack to your success and an episode that's going to change your life. In this mix today, I will be sharing with you one question that will up-level your productivity forever. It's Rave Church Volume 15. Let's go, family. If you're on YouTube, would you take a second right now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure those notifications are on. Thank you for your help. If you're listening on a podcast platform, take a second to make sure you are following the show.
When I wake up in the morning,
and let's just ease our way in to the virtual dance floor today. Welcome in, family. Brian, can we turn the monitor up overall just a little bit? This is Rave Church Volume 15.
and I know it's gonna be a lovely day.
I don't know where you are in your day. I don't know if it's morning, afternoon, or evening, but I am blessing you into a lovely day. And I want you to comment right now, claiming my lovely day. Claim it for today. If it's the end of the day, if it's nighttime, you can claim it for tomorrow. But I want to see some comments here claiming your lovely day.
When the day that lies ahead seemed impossible to face.
And I love this song that's starting us out today because it has this message that no matter what lies ahead of me, I get to choose the way I see it. I get to choose my mindset. I get to choose my perspective on this day.
And I know it's gonna
That's why we're claiming a lovely day together. Here we go. I told Brian that for the first time ever, perhaps, in Rave Church history, I was going to rock some sneakers in this mix, and I already feel it's getting me in a little more of a dancing mood. Shout out DJ Bryan Neville in the room and in the mix with me. And if you are just listening on SoundCloud or just listening on the podcast, please tune in every once in a while when we do these. Tune in on YouTube and you will see Brian and I co-creating them live.
and the world all right with me. I just want to look at you. And I know it's gonna be
I just know it, family. Gonna be a lovely day. Gonna be a lovely episode. Gonna be a lovely mix. And it wouldn't be the same without you. I am so glad you're here. Speaking of you being here, we are celebrating today, at the time of this initial recording, 25,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you for being a part of the Rave Church family, and thank you for hitting that share button and helping us spread the word. You know, Brian and I just did what we could call a little Rave Church trip to Coachella, celebrating 25,000 in 2025, celebrating how far we have come. Shout out to the Disco Ball now. These episodes just get better and better and better as we keep doing them. Shout out consistency. Shout out progress. Shout out staying on the path and staying in the flow. But Bryan and I went to Coachella and we celebrated 1 full year of Rave Church. And whether you are brand new and hearing my voice for the very first time, or you've been with us since prior to episode 1, volume 1, either way, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're a part of the family, and I pray that we are creating a culture of celebration that inspires you to do the same in your life. Did you know, at the time of this recording, there's already enough Rave Church minutes out there that if you were to use these episodes, if you were to listen to Rave Church every single day for a little while, well, you went on a run, well, you did your cardio, well, you lifted weights at the gym, whatever you choose. Some of you listen while you work. Some of you listen while you relax. Some of you listen while you drive or fly or travel. That part is up to you. But did you know there are enough Rave Church minutes out there? I love this song. We're having a celebration moment. Did you know you could listen to Rave Church every single day while you're on that treadmill, every single day while you take a walk around the neighborhood, every single day while you make breakfast for the kids, and an entire month would go by before you would run out and have to start repeating? There are that many minutes of Rave Church already available for you, family. And so we're celebrating. We're celebrating life. We're celebrating you. We're celebrating 25,000. And we just want to invite you not only to share these mixes, but we want to invite you to make Rave Church this amazing, infectious energy, to make it a part of your daily life. It's not just a catchy phrase. We really do want to be the soundtrack to your success, the soundtrack to your growth, the soundtrack to your life. And I know there's so much content out there. There's never been more content available than there is right now. But family, I unapologetically would challenge you still to consider making Rave Church a part of your rhythm, a part of your routine, a part of your daily life. Because I believe in these mixes and their ability to elevate your life. They're better than the radio. They're better than the news. They're better than your average course out there. They're better than an audiobook. They're better than your social media feed. I can almost guarantee when it comes to filling your consciousness with goodness and encouragement and faith. There's a party going on called Rave Church Volume 15. And thank you, partners. This episode is being brought to you by people just like you all around the world. LoveGrovePartners.com. What I know that Bryan can attest to is that we really have been celebrating every little bit of progress, celebrating every win, however big or small, celebrating every possible milestone that we could find all the way here. Bryan, have we not? And so we're going to continue celebrating. And family, I can't imagine where we're going to be in a year, where we're going to be in 5 years, but I pray this encourages you. It's never too early to start celebrating. So as I get ready to set up our topic for today, Rave Church Volume 15, I want to begin by riffing on an idea. And you can let me know in the comments if you've heard these words. Family, have you ever heard somebody say, how you feel is everything? I'm talking about in a manifestation sense, in the world of spirituality, in the world of personal development. Have you ever heard somebody express some form of this idea? That how you feel is everything, or how you feel is creating everything? Let me know in the comments. Now, I actually understand the premise behind that idea. And I understand the metaphysics of it. I understand our emotions are such important gifts and information. I understand that on the deepest level, we can say energy is everything. But after 10 years of coaching people, family, I also want to say, I need to push back on that statement a little bit, that how you feel is everything, because while I do understand the principle behind it, I also understand the risks, the concerns, the potential harm that can come with that idea. See, I know from experience, sometimes that idea doesn't feel helpful. If you find yourself in a moment where you don't feel great and you don't know how to change it.
Can't stop.
I love that the track just said can't stop, because that's literally what it feels like sometimes for people. That, Stefan, I don't know how to start feeling better. I don't know how to just turn this off. I'm not in a good space right now, but I can't just press a button. People have told me so many times, I don't know if I can right in this moment feel better. And when somebody is in that position, it doesn't always feel helpful to hear how you feel is everything.
Can't stop.
And I understand that this idea has truth to it. I understand the principle. I understand where it's coming from. But I also feel like it has led a lot of people accidentally into paranoia and anxiety and superstition and fear and a continual stress about their inner world that looks and feels like, I don't want to feel the wrong way, and accidentally create the wrong thing. And have you ever felt this way? Or have you ever encountered someone who felt this way? That suddenly it felt like this super heavy burden to carry, because I always have to be vigilant about the way that I feel. And family, I'm here to suggest today, as we get into this topic, I believe there's a higher paradigm available to us. And so I want to speak over you and suggest today, you might not feel good in every moment, but there's a deeper truth to tap into. You might not feel like it's working right now, but there's a deeper truth to tap into. You might not feel like you're doing well, but what if there's a deeper truth to tap into? Let me ask you today, are you open to a truth that goes beyond just one moment and one feeling? See, today's episode is about the topic of agency. I want every single person to comment that word, agency. I'm not going to spell it out. I feel like there's only one spelling. It's pretty obvious. But I want everybody to type out that word, because today's episode is about agency. And I feel like I'm here on assignment from the Department of Personal Power with a job today to remind you that you have agency in your life. I said I'm here today from the Department of Your Personal Power to remind you that you have agency in your life. Now, you know I can't resist. If we're gonna talk about agency, I'm not gonna leave you hanging. I'm still me, I'm still Stephen Lovegrove. So you know I have to give you a definition as this very groovy track plays, okay? When we talk about agency, we're talking about the capacity of an individual to fulfill their potential. If you want the simplest definition, somebody type that out. We're talking about the capacity of an individual to fulfill their potential. And let me give you a further definition. Agency is the sense of responsibility for your life. The belief that your actions make a difference. The ability to recognize the connection in your world between cause and effect. This is agency. The capacity of individuals to fulfill their potential, the sense of responsibility for your life. The belief that your actions make a difference, that you can actually change things. The ability to recognize the connection in your world between cause and effect. That is agency. And I want every single person who can interact in the comments right now to ask yourself, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you feel like you have agency in your life right now? Give me a number from 1 to 10. No wrong answers, no judgment on any of them. But I just want to know, based on that definition, as you hear this concept today, 1 to 10, how much do you feel like you have agency in your life? May I just say as we continue, no matter where you landed on that scale, I can give you this invitation easily. Keep listening to Rave Church, and your number will certainly grow. Whatever you chose, wherever you find yourself, whatever number you would say is your starting point today. And it is just that. It is just a starting point. But keep listening to Rave Church, family, and your number will grow. You know, I've coached people around the world for 10 years. And when I started the Stephen Lovegrove Show, the YouTube channel, the podcast, really everything that led us right here to Rave Church Volume 15. I did it all with the intention to empower people worldwide beyond just my clients, people that I might never meet, people that I might never get the chance to work with one-on-one or talk to personally, but I wanted to make empowering, life-changing resources available for them. And so here we are, and as I've been on this journey, as I reflect back on 10 years of coaching, there's something that's become very, very clear to me. And let me just state the thesis for you here. It has become clear to me. It doesn't matter who someone is. It doesn't matter what their background is or what they've been through. I have discovered this to be a universal truth. Somebody type this out in the comments. The more agency someone feels in their life, the better. If you really want to help people, if you really want to change somebody's life, if you really want to empower somebody, I have discovered this to be a universal truth. Again, somebody please type it out in the comments for us. It doesn't matter who someone is, what their background is, or what they have been through. And I'm not minimizing those factors. I'm just saying it's a universal truth. The more agency somebody feels in their life, the better. Always, always, always. Nobody has ever benefited, in other words, from feeling less agency in their life. And everybody benefits from feeling more agency in their life. By the way, let us know in the comments, how do you feel about these disco ball lights? Because I'm loving them. You know, one of the reasons that it's tricky for us sometimes to embrace the concept of agency, and something that I think we must understand as we have this discussion today, is when we are kids growing up, we don't actually have full agency, right? Think about this. When we're a kid, when we're little, when we're growing up, we can't do everything for ourselves. We don't have the ability or the responsibility to make all of those decisions. We actually don't have responsibility fully for ourselves. This is why we call them minors. And a parent or a guardian is required to be responsible. And so there's this tricky reality that in that stage of life, when our consciousness is drawing conclusions about the world and how it works, we're doing so from a period of time, from a set of experiences where we don't actually have full agency in our lives. And so I want to point out, I want you to understand today, in many of our core memories and wounds and experiences from our earliest years, it is normal for people that our brain remembers we didn't get to choose. We didn't get to pick our family. We didn't get to pick where we grew up. We didn't get to pick our school. I could go on and on. The list goes on and on. And our brain remembers that we didn't get to choose, that we didn't have an option, that we didn't have agency. And that's not just true if you had a particularly difficult childhood. That's true for all of us when it comes to being a kid. So recognize that today, and recognize the way that that might have shaped the conclusions that you drew about the world in those formative years. But also understand that we are meant to cross a line as we become healthy, healed, whole adults, where we suddenly realize we have agency in our lives. One spiritual text says it will always feel disempowering when cause and effect feel completely disconnected in your life. See, we're meant to cross the line of agency at some point, stepping into becoming a healed and whole adult, where we operate with responsibility, where we understand cause and effect, where we work with sowing and reaping. I felt led to share while we're here. I recently heard Oprah say that from the time she was a child, she was told, she was taught, and she sincerely believed God was her father. And even growing up with some traumatic things, even feeling abandoned by parents, even going through some things that were unimaginable, she shared how she always had this innate belief. She chose to take this belief on that God was her father, and that made her feel invincible. That made her feel like she could do anything. And I love that. I was thinking about the way that I believe that story helped her transcend a bad starting point. That story, I believe, helped her find her power, helped her find agency. And I want to speak over you today that you always have a new story available. No matter how you were raised, no matter where you grew up, no matter what has been done to you or spoken over you in the past, family, you always have a new story available. And the same way Oprah latched on and said, I choose to see myself as a child of God. I want to invite somebody who this is speaking to today. See what happens when you identify as a child of God. You know, in the ancient creation poems, it is said that God creates the world and then gives the humans dominion. By the way, a word that means the power to rule and reign. So when a later spiritual text says that you are meant to reign in life, and I'm talking R-E-I-G-N, I hope I spelled that right on the fly. I'm talking reign as royalty, reign as a king, reign as a queen. You are meant to reign in life. It makes sense because God gave dominion. And so I believe we are meant to feel power in our lives. That's why we feel out of alignment when we don't. That's why it eats away at us on the inside. That's why it feels so bad. It always is going to feel out of alignment when we don't have power in our lives. And I want to talk about this frankly today because I feel like modern spirituality has somehow ended up with this mistake where people have been told that they have immense power in their mind. And I agree with that. I love that. I believe in that concept. I teach it, wholehearted yes from me. But after 10 years of coaching people, which I have said too many times in this episode, but it's true, and after 15 years of being a student myself in the world of personal development and spirituality, I feel like I've started to observe this weird phenomenon where people have been told that they have immense power in their minds, but somehow They start to think, or they start to feel, or at the very least, they start to operate as if they have less power in their own lives as a whole. And so you end up with people doing hours and hours and hours of inner work trying to fix things while missing all kinds of practical opportunities to change their lives, and somehow not feeling like they have any agency outside of what happens in a course or at a retreat or in a meditation. Family, could it be we've gotten off track here? And I want you to feel like you have power in your mind and in your inner world, but I also want you to feel like you have power in your life. I want you to feel like you have power in your career. I want you to feel like you have power in business. I want you to feel like you have power with your schedule. Fill in the blank with any area of your life. And can I suggest today, if you're listening to this, I know you resonate with this conversation. I know you're into spirituality of some kind. I know you're into personal development of some kind. Could I suggest, I know you got into this space to tap into power. Not, as it has been written, a form of spirituality that has no power. But you got into this for something real. You got into this for something legit. You got into this for something life-changing. I want to suggest, I know you got into this space to tap into power, and we are getting you back to true power today. So again, I will suggest, the more agency you feel in your own life, the better. And so that leads us to a question that I use in my own life. It's not the biggest question in this episode. That's coming in a little while, but it does lead us to a question I really want you to use. When you consider a thought, when you consider a belief system, when you consider a paradigm, family, I want you to start using this question, okay? Somebody type this out in the comments for us. Is this thing leading me to have more agency or less agency in my own life? Is this thing that I'm considering leading me to have more agency or less agency in my own life? And I really want you to consider this, because family, I have discovered there are ideas that sound good and feel really appealing and may even have some merit to them. But by accident, without realizing it, and before you know it, they lead people to have less agency in their lives.
Look at him and tell him yes. I'm grateful.
I don't want to go into lots of examples here, but I will tell you firsthand, I have certainly taken on some ideas over the years, and it felt good, it felt appealing, it felt like it had some merit to it originally. But I have to admit, as I look at the fruit of the idea, as I look at the harvest it produced, as I look at how things played out in my life, believing that thing somehow made me feel like I had less agency in my life, not more. And at least from my experience, family, anytime I've ended up in that position, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't support me, because the more agency I feel like I have in my world, the better. I will use one specific example here of an idea that I don't think actually supports people. Somehow, in the world of online business and online coaching and online entrepreneurship, I feel like people bought into this idea that the less I have to do, the better. Just inherently, just across the board, just as a rule. Let me know in the comments if you feel like this messaging is all over the internet, that the less I have to do, the better. And it really almost turns into a message that says, and you know, the ultimate goal, the ultimate win, the ultimate outcome would be nothing is required. You don't have to do a thing. No work whatsoever. And by the way, clearly that's not the answer, given one spiritual principle says, God blesses the work of our hands. God blesses the work of our hands. The goal is not to have nothing in your hands. The goal is not to have nothing in the ground. The goal is not nothing to do. And I've always just believed, Bryan, I don't know how you feel about this, but I've always just believed if somebody feels like I just want to do zero, I just want to do the bare minimum, I just want to do as little as possible, I've always felt like they have the wrong thing. You haven't found your true calling. You haven't found your true purpose. You haven't found your true zone of genius if you feel that way. But again, I want you to start looking for, when I believe this, do I have more agency or less? And I want you to beware of stories that feel liberating at first, but leave you with less agency in the end. That's good. Beware of stories that feel liberating at first, but leave you with less agency in the end. You know, one ancient text says, make sure that the light you have found is truly light. And I'll just put that out there for anybody that needs to speak to. Make sure the light that you have found is truly light. But as you assess whether something gives you more agency or less in your life, I want to give you a quote that has come back to my mind many, many times from Andrea Crowder. And the quote is, choose the story that gives you the most power. You're always going to choose something. Literally, positive psychologists tell us, your brain has to decide, what dots am I going to connect, and how am I going to interpret them, and what am I going to make them mean? And I know that somebody right now is facing a situation where you have to figure out, what does this mean? What interpretation am I choosing? You're right now in the midst of figuring out what story you're going to live into. Choose the story that gives you the most power. And along those lines, can I challenge you? Please don't pick the worst possible story that focuses on the one thing you can't choose, the one thing you can't change, the one thing you can't control. You know, we were talking earlier before we went live about the way that when it comes to our bodies, some people will hyper focus, hyper fixate on the factor that is genetics. And I get it. People fixate on it because it's this element that they didn't choose. It's this element that they can't change. It's this element that they can't control. I understand that. But isn't it interesting that modern science has not led us to the conclusion that more things than we thought are predetermined completely by genetics? Modern science has led us to the opposite conclusion, that actually way less things than we thought are completely predetermined and set in stone by genetics. And if you look at the research and the work of somebody like Joe Dispenza or Bruce Lipton or many, many others, what we find is even when it comes to our genetics, there's lots of switches, so to speak, on-off buttons, so to speak, where we interact with it. We get a say. We have a role to play. And I'm not here primarily with a health message or a body message today. But I do want to say as an example, isn't it interesting that our brains tend to fixate on, this is the one piece that I can't control. This is the one piece that I didn't choose. This is the one piece that is out of my hands. And our brains can laser focus on that. And not all of the pieces where we get to choose something. And so may I invite you, choose the story that gives you the most power in every area, in every situation. Don't pick the worst possible story that focuses on the thing that you can't choose, change, or control. And family, I am believing for a resilient community this year. A community that is mentally resilient, a community that is emotionally resilient, a community that is resilient through all seasons of life. You are far more resilient than you know. You know, as I think about this idea of agency, I also think about the text that says, it is God who gives you the power to generate wealth. And I want you to notice, we need to have both the God part and the you part. Do you hear the both and there? That God is the source. That's the God part. It all comes from God. And because God is the source, you have power. It says you have the power to generate wealth. And so as we talk about agency today, family, what I'm really suggesting is that we claim this both and. It is God who gives me the power. So I'm going to recognize God as the source from this day forward, and I'm going to tap into all of my power from this day forward. We need both. There's an old saying that says, if you fight for your excuses, you get to keep them. If you fight for your excuses, congratulations, you get to keep them. And that quote has always stopped me in my tracks because it reminds me there are some things I don't want to be right about. That if I actually insist on this belief and my brain does its thing and my brain will certainly try to prove it right, I lose. Bryan, I feel this for somebody today. There are people watching this, listening to this, grooving with us right now, and they're fighting to be right about something, and it's not helping them. They're fighting to be right about something, and it's not serving them. And I know for a fact people will very rarely question a belief until it fails to produce a desired result. But family, if something is not producing a desired result, it might be time to open up to something new. And so I briefly want to talk through 3 common mistakes that I see people making when it comes to taking agency in their lives. The first one I would call the resistance mistake. And I'm going to do another check in the comments. Let me know in the comments if you've heard somebody say, energetically, you want to look for the path of least resistance. See, here's my issue. When we use those words, when we use that language, when we say that phrase, the path of least resistance, if what we mean there is the path that feels best in expressing you, in expressing your calling, in expressing your purpose, then that's okay. But I fear that when people hear these words, and man, have I heard it come up in coaching a lot, they're not taking the path of least resistance that way. And they're hearing it a little different. And they end up on a path that is out of alignment completely. They end up at a path that is 100% distraction. They end up at a path that has nothing for them. And so I'm not here to fight over language or semantics, but I am here to suggest often the path that has the least resistance, period, is the path where nothing changes and everything stays the same. Some of you have been doing the path of least resistance, and it's not flow, it's not alignment, it's not spiritual. It's just the path of fear. It's just the path of nothing changes. And I just have learned from experience, and there's so many principles to back this up. Sometimes there is the most resistance stopping us from moving forward, precisely around the thing that is most important to our soul. Stephen Pressfield would suggest, what if the resistance is a sign? This is really important to your soul. This is really important to your destiny. This is really important to your journey. And what if how scared you feel is actually not a bad sign? Not a red flag, not what you think it is. Because you know this is for you. You know that you're on the path of purpose. You know that you're called to move forward. We're talking about the resistance mistake. And I just want to suggest to you today, discomfort is not inherently a bad sign. One of my clients had the realization once. They said, Stefan, I thought I was avoiding pain because in my childhood and in the hardest seasons of my life, I went through unimaginable pain. And so I never want to put myself through that again. They said, I thought I was avoiding pain, but somewhere along the way, without realizing it, it crossed a line. And now I'm not avoiding just pain. I ended up accidentally avoiding discomfort. And they said, I don't think it served me. They had this realization, I don't think it's serving me to avoid discomfort. I don't think it's serving me to baby myself. I don't think it's serving me to believe I'm fragile or not capable. And I believe somebody listening today is having that exact realization. You don't have to avoid discomfort. You know how with a GPS you can put in the setting avoid tolls and it will still try to take you to your destination? But you're gonna run into a conflict if there's only toll roads? I think discomfort works the same way. I think some of you have put in a setting that says avoid discomfort at all costs. And it's holding you back, fam. It's holding back your destiny. So that's the resistance mistake. And then number 2 is the flow mistake. This is a very simple one. This is where people are just waiting for the flow to return. Waiting for the flow to come back. I'm waiting. I don't want to take action outside of the flow. I don't want to take action outside of alignment. I don't want to take action that doesn't feel good. And I believe in a truth behind all of those concepts. But see how we flower this up with spiritual language? It's the flow mistake. Because I am certain there are people listening right now, and you need to act your way into the flow. You need to decide your way into the flow. You need to begin your way into the flow. You need to commit your way into the flow. You need to stick with it into the flow. Stop waiting for the flow to come back. And I really passionately want to get this point across today because the latest scientific research actually supports this. You know, when they study humans who at a very high level get into a flow state, I'm talking musicians and producers in studio, I'm talking about athletes and fitness people at the highest caliber, I'm talking about authors pushing past writer's block, the list goes on and on. When they study flow states, you know what the research shows? The vast majority of flow states begin with pushing past resistance. The vast majority of flow states begin with a moment that at best feels average or boring. The vast majority of flow states begin with pushing past some kind of resistance, some kind of block that feels like it's in the way. At the very least, some sort of feeling of boredom or mundane. So please don't spend your life waiting. Not as John Mayer sang, for the world to change, but waiting for the flow to hit. When often a flow state begins with boredom, a flow state begins with discomfort, a flow state begins by you pushing past some resistance. Let's not make the resistance mistake. Let's not make the flow mistake. And then last but not least of these mistakes, family, number 3, let's not make the feeling mistake. And I felt led to really speak to this one for a moment here. Because the feeling mistake is in essence people saying, I just trust what feels good now. That is my compass. That is my sign. That is my indicator. How I feel, after all, is everything. Isn't that the idea we started from? So I just go with what feels good now. And I think deep down, we all know, if we're intellectually honest, that can't really work. Because what are addicts doing? Any type of addiction, okay? Substances, shopping, gambling, you name it. What are addicts doing if not doing what feels good now? But see, if you're part of the community, if you've been around for a second, you've heard me talk about debt decisions and investment decisions and the way that debt decisions borrow against your future, but the way that investment decisions sow into your future and make your future brighter. The problem with I just go with what feels good now is what feels good now might be a debt decision. What feels good now might be something you don't want to sow. What feels good now might be something you don't want in your future. So I pray that these mistakes are illuminating something in your consciousness, that they're causing light bulbs to go off, that they're creating aha moments, as Mariah sings. So there's a story that I want to share with you, and this is leading to the question I teased at the very beginning. There was an employee who shares the story about having this boss, and he worked in Silicon Valley. He worked for what was at the time a startup. He worked in the world of tech, and he had this boss that always seemed to think that this employee had way more power, way more resources, way more, here's the key word, agency than he really had. And as this employee describes the experience that he had working at this company, he said, at first it really drove me crazy because my boss would ask for ridiculous things. My boss would ask for things that didn't sound possible whatsoever. My boss asked for things that I thought, there's no way we can do that. There's no way we have the team. There's no way we have the budget. There's no way we have the resources. He said at first it drove him crazy that his boss would ask for all of these things and seemed to think that he had almost, hear this, follow me, because it's leading to a powerful question. He said, it almost felt like my boss believed that I had 10 times the agency I really had, 10 times the ability, 10 times the resources. But you know, when this employee was no longer working under this boss and no longer working for this company, he started to reflect back on it. And as he reflected back on it, he said, you know what's interesting is, as I look back on my time at that company, it's very clear. I created way more than I ever would have thought possible. I accomplished way more than I ever would have thought possible. I innovated in ways I would have never thought possible. And as he reflected back on it, here's what he couldn't deny. Because he had a boss that kept acting like he had so much agency, it put a demand on his potential. It activated something within him. It did something. It awakened something that was already within him, but might not have been activated otherwise. And he started to realize, because my boss seemed to believe I had all this agency, it made me start to question. It made me start to imagine. It made me start to wonder, what if I have more agency than I think? And so as he reflected back on this, he says this question came forward with him and is still a question he asks himself on a nearly daily basis to this day. Here's the question. I'm passing it on to you today, okay? What would I do if I had 10 times the agency that I think I currently have? Everybody type this one out in the comments. Write it down physically. Type it out on your phone. What would I do if I had 10 times the agency that I believe I currently have? And I want you to know, family, asking this question has radically changed my life. Asking this question has powerfully activated me and up-leveled me in ways I never expected. And so today I've been so excited to pass this question on to you, a simple but a life-changing question that if you ever find yourself confused, if you ever find yourself stuck, if you ever find yourself feeling uncertain, if you ever find yourself feeling unsure what to do next, if you ever find yourself feeling insecure, you can use this question. What would I do if I had 10 times the agency I think I currently have? Family, I want you to use this question in the days to come. And I want you to surprise yourself with the answer. I want you to find out what potential has been within you all along that you didn't even know you have. I want you to find out what suddenly feels obvious, what suddenly seems so easy, what suddenly opens up as a possibility that you never even considered before. And since I heard that question and have been using it in my life, family, there have been so many moments where it applied and it did the trick and it worked for me. What would I do right now? What would I do here? What would I do next if I had 10 times the agency I currently think I have? I want to encourage you today. You have power in your life, much more than you might think, much more than you might be currently operating with, much more than you might have realized. And the more agency you feel in your life, the better. As I said at the beginning, I'm here today from the department of your personal power to take a stand for your agency. And specifically, we've got a couple of songs left, but specifically, I wanted to take a moment and speak to the agency that you have when it comes to choosing the stories you believe about you, when it comes to your identity, when it comes to your self-image. You know, some of you have heard me share this story before, but one time when I was growing up in the worlds of religious fundamentalism, I was at a holiday gathering with a bunch of relatives, and a relative said to me, you know, you better get used to people not liking you because we are fundamentalists and people do not like us. I laugh every time about this story. And it's funny because unless I had told this story, I don't think any of the adults in the room even remember that this was said, that this conversation happened. But it made an impression on me because I remember hearing that. And I'm not saying that nothing stuck, nothing, injured me, nothing stuck with me from childhood, but from the moment I heard this, I wasn't going to respond outwardly, and I wouldn't have even heard it internally with the cuss word at that time. But I will tell you, there was an immediate, oh no, that just rose up in my spirit as I heard that and was like, I do not receive. As the kids would say today, do not claim. I did not claim that. From the first time I heard it, I did not claim it. But I bring this up as an example. It's a funny example of a story that somebody offered me, and from the minute I heard it, there was a part of me that said, I do not like that. I do not appreciate that. I do not receive that. I do not take that. I do not claim that. And I didn't take that on, and it's a fun example, but I have to admit, family, I can't say that for everything. There have been many stories over the years that I have taken on and just accepted, even though they took agency away from me. And so I want to use the example of one I didn't take on so you can see what I mean. Because remember, I said you can use this litmus test for everything. Does believing this give me more agency in my life or less? Another form of that question would be, when I believe this, how does it affect me? Who do I become? How do I show up? So think about, for a person who believes, I am destined to be disliked, how do they show up in any environment? How do they show up at college? How do they show up online? How do they show up at school? How do they show up at a job? How do they show up meeting new people in any setting? Think about the way that story spills over with an infinite, hard to measure ripple effect in somebody's life. And does it give them more agency or less? Better quality of life or worse? More power or less? And so I didn't take on that story, but there have been stories that I took on Even though they made me feel like I couldn't do something, even though they made me feel like I was at a fundamental disadvantage, even though they made me feel like somebody else gets to have it but not me, there have been stories that I have taken on, and I'm certain the same is true for you, where it didn't serve us, it didn't support us, it actually left us with less agency, but we took it on anyway. And I just believe this is a moment of release. This is a moment of letting go. This is a moment of surrender, where we are surrendering the stories. Not the desires, not the dreams, not the vision, but this is a moment of surrender where we are surrendering the stories. And if there is any story that you have had brought to your mind throughout today's episode, if there's any story that's coming to your mind now, we'll take a moment and just let the keys play for a second. God, I'm not messing around here. I want people free. I want people empowered. There are people who are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and the childhood was 18 years, and now they've lived with that story for an additional 20 years on top of the 18. I am not messing around today. And so I am praying that every single person, if there is any story they have been carrying, any story they need to let go, any story that can't go with them into their destiny, any story that doesn't align with their purpose and the truth of who they really are, any story that somehow gives them less agency in their life and not more, I decree and declare it is now dissolved. We release the stories. We surrender the stories. And God, I pray that today would be a day where we choose the story that gives us our agency back in our lives. I feel this life-changing day for somebody so strong that this would be the day we choose the story that gives us power. And so in just a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, we're going to transition into the song that I really love. I feel like it's an underrated track, but we're going to transition into the song Anyone. And it has the lyric, if it's not you, it's not anyone. I always, every time I try to quote a lyric with the keys playing, I brain freeze like I did with Fantasia Barrino. So sorry, Fantasia. Or I'm always just uncertain if I'm quoting it correctly. I think, is that the lyric? This is such a simple lyric. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Okay, that's the lyric. And I want you to hear this. I know it's not really the context of a song. It's a cute love song. But I want you to hear this as a message from God for you today. And I really want you to hear this. I feel like I'm fighting for somebody's self-worth, self-image, self-confidence. Somebody is listening to this, and deep down you believe your purpose could be better lived by somebody else. You think your calling would be going so much better if it was that person, not you. There's somebody listening to this, and you feel like your destiny would be so much easier if you were somebody else. And do you hear the logical flaw in that spiritually? Because God did not create anybody else for your purpose. God did not create anybody else for your calling. God did not create anybody else for your destiny or your vision or your assignment. You are the perfect one for everything that you are called to do. And if it's not you, it's not anyone. And so I'm not saying you're called to do everything. I'm not saying that every single person listening to this is simultaneously called to be president and an astronaut and an American Idol. Most people listening to this are probably not called to be all three of those things, maybe any of those three things. Who knows? I bless you if you are called to be president. I bless you if you're called to be an astronaut. I bless you if you're called to be on American Idol, but look at the contracts closely. But the point is this. The point is, shout out Fantasia Barrino again. The point is this. The point is that you are the perfect person. God made you the perfect person for your purpose, your calling, your assignment. And I just believe the more we lean into that, the more empowered we feel, the more agency we feel, and we stop comparing ourselves to somebody else. Because I can assure you, somebody else does not have the right equipment. Somebody else does not have the right stuff inside of them. Somebody else does not actually have the grace for what you are called to do. It would not be better if it was them. It is ideal for it to be you. You are the perfect person for your calling. Let's go into the song. If it's not you, it's not anyone.
Dance with me under the diamonds. See me like breath in the cold. Sleep with me here in the silence. Come kiss me silver and gold. You say that I won't lose you, but you can't predict the future. So just hold on like you will never let go. Yeah, if you ever move on without
I promise you, love will never let go of you. You're the only one that can fulfill your assignment. What if you were empowered to make all the right decisions, all the best decisions this year?
Forever's not enough time to love you the way that I want.
I pray you feel a sense of hope rising as this song plays, family. You're getting your agency back. You're getting your power back, and not just back. I feel like you've never lived in this zone before that you're stepping into today.
I need to make sure you know that you are the only one I'll ever love. Only one. Yeah. You. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Gotta tell you. Looking back.
I really pray that you are receiving that and breathing that in today. If it's not you, it's not anyone.
If it's not you, it's not anyone. It's not anyone. Not anyone. If it's
We're stepping into a new story together. Choose the story that gives you the most power. All right, family, one song left. If you're still here, let me know in the comments. It's Rave Church Volume 15, the one where you got back your agency. And I chose this song on purpose because to me, this is how it feels when you reign in your life as the royalty that you are. This is how it feels to have your power back. This is how it feels when you have agency. Are you ready to feel so alive? You know, I really do mean it, family. I am believing the zone you're stepping into It's not actually a return to something you've had before. It is brand new. You've never shown up in the world like this. Your friends and family and loved ones have never seen you at this level in the very best way. You've never shown up with so much confidence. You've never shown up with so much power. You've never shown up with so much authority. You've never shown up with so much self-worth. You've never shown up with so much self-trust. I feel it so strongly, family. It's not a return to anything in the past. It's a new zone, a new season, a new version of you coming forth. Let me know if you claim it. This is what agency feels like. This is what power feels like. This is what freedom feels like. What would you do next if you had 10 times the agency you think you currently have? And what story gives you the most power? You know, we've never had a disco ball at Rave Church before, but Bryan decided we could. And so this is agency in real time, family. We decided we could, so we did. We thought it would be fun, so we did. We wanted to, so we did. I bless you into that kind of energy this year. This is the year you step into agency like never before. And I can't wait to see what you create from it. I can't wait to see, as Dr. Seuss says, oh, the places you'll go. This is Rave Church. Thank you, Bryan. And thank you, family, for listening to Rave Church all the way to the end today and being here with me. It means so much. As you've heard me say multiple times, this is volume 15, and I swear, thank you, God, for this. They just keep getting better and better every single time. If this episode spoke to you today, the fastest way that good things in the world expand is when they are shared. You know, Oprah realized this early on in her career, that if she loved a book or a song or an idea, there was a certain amount of joy that she could experience from it solo. But that had a limit. That had a cap. However, she could share that thing, that experience, that idea with the world. And suddenly, there was no limit. There was no cap. And she could experience infinite times the joy and the fulfillment and the impact. There really is something so satisfying about knowing that you were able to share something that genuinely made a difference in someone's life. And you never know who on your timeline might need this exact message about agency in their life right now. So all you have to do is hit the share button wherever you are tuning in today and post this episode on the platform that you use the most. Thank you in advance across all space and time from Bryan and I for being part of the miracle in someone else's worlds. I want to mention here, I recently posted a message on social media encouraging people, reminding people that you are meant to prosper in any economy, and it is possible to prosper in any economy, even this one, which is 100% the truth. There are 5 things that I am always praying for my community here, and many of you have heard me share these before, but I am praying for you, if you're listening right now, that every need in your world would be met without question, without delay, and without fear. That you would have the complete freedom of living debt-free, all unwanted debt being supernaturally cleared from your life at a rapid pace. That you would have $1 million, multi-million dollar, and even $1 billion ideas that are a blessing to your family just as much as they are a blessing to the world. That you would be able to be more generous and to sow more this year than you ever have before. And that you would always know what your next step is. Knowing that God is your source, there is always more on the way, and it never, ever, ever runs out. Now, I don't know when you happen to be listening to this episode, or what's going on in your circumstances, much less what's going on in the world at the time you're listening to this. And we really do have a reach into over 140 countries, billions and billions of people able to access these episodes. So I don't know what's happening around you, but that message that you are meant to prosper in any economy is timeless and eternal, and just as true whenever it happens to reach you right now. And in this post that I did the other day, I offered people a playlist of free resources that we created to help people step into their agency when it comes to this crucial area of life. Now, it's true, money isn't everything. I will happily say that. Money isn't everything. But as one scripture says, money answers everything. And it is the fuel that makes so many desires and dreams and visions possible. If you are a part of the Rave Church family, and especially if this has resonated to such a degree that you are still with me and listening at this point in the episode, I want you to have all the resources that you need to be all that you came here to be and to do all that you came here to do. I truly can't believe, family, how people have been responding to that post. So much interest, so much demand. Clearly, these resources are meeting a real need that people have right now for support, and I would love to share them with you as well. So leave a comment here or send the team a message. You can find the email address at our partner page, and we will get the playlist to you, all of those resources to you, completely free as a gift, including the most important money teaching I've ever done, the key to prospering unconditionally, even in a recession, and the number one belief that you want to hold for ever increasing wealth. I am so excited to mentor you and support you in this area, if it is an area you would like to grow in. And as you've heard me quote in this Rave Church mix, the spiritual principle says, "It is God who gives you the power to get wealth. I know that power is available to every single child of God, and I want you to tap into it this year like you have never done before. As always, I want to shout out my partners, as this episode, just like all of my work, is made possible by listeners and viewers and groovers just like you. You can learn the full story behind partnership and the mission of my work online at lovegrovepartners.com. But just to provide some context for anybody who is new and anybody who is curious, there are 3 ways that people choose to support my work, and specifically Rave Church. 1, if this episode in particular spoke to you, you can make a one-time gift today. Nothing is too small to give, except 0, if you're feeling called to be a part. And please know, a gift of any amount immediately makes you a partner. That's number 1. Number 2, if Rave Church is a part of your life and you would like to specifically support this creation, this series, this existing in the world, we have a special option available for you to become a Rave Church VIP. It's a recurring gift once a month that makes you a VIP in our world and communicates your support for this existing and being available as a resource to anyone who wants it. You can look for that option specifically and become a Rave Church VIP if that calls to you at lovegrovepartners.com. And then last but not least of the options, number 3, many of you know that I believe wholeheartedly in the spiritual practice of tithing. Giving 10% to whatever is your church, your spiritual home, to the place that feeds your soul. I've done it in my own life for 15 years and counting. And you came too late to talk me out of it. I would never not tithe for the rest of my life because I've seen too much. I've seen the results. In fact, this principle is so important to me. I sincerely recommend that every single person listening considers it. Even if you don't want to do it here. Even if you don't ever listen to me again, even if you give somewhere else, that is a-okay. Please do it somewhere else, but please at least consider doing it. If your finances are not where you want them to be, not prospering and growing and ever increasing, I promise you, this is worth your consideration. And if you need a place to tithe consistently, that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt is good ground to sow into, we are happy to be that place. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We joyfully receive, as hundreds of testimonies from all around the world can tell you. Stephen Lovegrove Ministries is incredible soil to sow into and to get connected to as we reach people with a message of unconditional love. All of those 3 options are available for you in this moment. I trust you to feel into what is right for you and to do whatever you feel called to do. As we wrap up today, I bless every person making a one-time gift to help you remember this breakthrough forever. I bless every person who is a Rave Church VIP. Thank you for coming with us on the journey. We truly are just getting started. And I bless every person who is a tither. You have tither's rights. I love to say it that way. And there's no better feeling in the world than having God as your business partner and knowing you always live in overflow. As we all leave the virtual dance floor today, I decree and declare over you listening right now that you move rapidly into a new season of life, beginning right here and now, with rapid evidence, rapid change, rapid growth, rapid success, and rapid evidence to follow. May you always choose the story that gives you the most power. May you always lean into beliefs that give you more agency, never less, in your life. And may you begin to daily ask this question: if I had 10 times the agency that I think I have right now, what would I do next? I am confident that question is going to boost your productivity permanently and open up new worlds of possibility for you. Your life will one day be unrecognizable in the best way. Thank you, family, for being here. Even the time that you spent listening today is a sound investment that I know yields a mighty return in your future. I bless you into exceedingly, super abundantly, more than you can ever ask, dream, think, or imagine. I believe in you, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say, I always will. See you soon on the virtual dance floor. The best is yet to come.